Best Trash Anime of 2020. You heard that right. I'm going to go ahead and go over it just like I did with my last video where I talked about the worst animes to come out of 2020 and narrow down to the five, tippity five of the bunch. And in the Best Trash Anime category, to kind of do a recap as to what category and what categorizes it as a trash anime, it shows that are essentially fun, bad, certain hentais that can also be like really enjoyable and are actually good to watch, while simultaneously being like laughing and funny and maybe even wholesome to a degree. But basically, these are shows that are in general fun, bad animes slash hentais that are worth watching. So I'm gonna narrow it down to the top five and go over it based upon a list that I made from 5 years ago prior. So without further ado, let's get into the list. Okay, and as always, as you can see, we have our topsters, we have my Google Docs list as confirmed, and I want to start this off with not just five, but six honorable mentions for what could make it to the top five best trash anime to come out of 2020 that year. And we're going to start off with a really polarizing one that I know is getting a lot of heat at the moment because of what's been going on with the series and how bad the ending is becoming, and that's Kanjo Karshimasu. Yep, this barely, just barely made it in my top 10. So yes, I know that this should not be on any list at all now, given how polarizing the ending has become as of late. But you have to understand, Kanjo Kontramasu, aka Rent a Girlfriend, when it came out back in 2020, it was a fun, bad, trashy anime. At least the first season was. And if you ignore the later seasons to come out and is coming out, I think that this is still a strong, okay, fun, bad anime show. Like, if you got rid of all the really bad negativity surrounding this show, I think this is considered to be like a top 10 fun, bad anime to come out of 2020 that year. And I know I shouldn't be defending this show because of how much the show has gone downhill. More specifically, the manga has gone downhill. But yeah, this is definitely like the bottom barrel of like the best trash anime of 2020. But moving on from that, from here we have a ton of hentais that personally I would rank a lot higher on here, but for reasons out of my control, I feel like it was only best to move these at the bottom, as some of these hentais at the time just didn't weren't really withhold its test of time, or some of these hentais weren't good enough to really be like, oh yeah, I remember that hentai from 2020 that year. So I'm gonna speedrun all these hentai. So for starters, we have Busty Princess Hypnosis, um, a hentai by T-Rex Studios. Essentially, it's like hypnosis hentai. Yeah, it is bad. It has a lot of really mind control subject matter at hand, but it is a fun, really stupid hentai that honestly, if you give it a watch, it is worth checking out. Next, we have Shikijo Kyodon, which is pretty much a hentai about a middle-aged man who lost his job, and he now goes into this lifestyle where he's now touted as a deity, and the people, his followers that worship him, has to worship his rod, his stature, basically. And it's a pretty dumb concept. It's only 2 episodes in length. It's pretty fun bad when you look deep into like how ridiculous it is with some once again crazy good animation from T-Rex Studios before they really went super hard the NTR route at the time. Next we have what I consider to be the true sequel to my masterpiece the hentai, which is Anewa Yamama Junyuchu, or My Former Delinquent Sister is a Nursing Mother. Like I said, more or less wholesome hentai content. Yeah, it is a little bit incestuous, you could say, but it is super wholesome at the end of the day that you might get a lot of bang for your buck for. Then we have Yarichin Katakyoshi Netori Hokoko. Jeez, I got that down first time. But again, another one that is about a dude who got a job, and his job is to mentor his wife and the boss's wife and the boss's daughter, and basically be like a tutor for them, and with a little bit of a contract little twist. This one's okay. This one's fine. It's not like borderline like super fucked up. In fact, the characters in the show actually consent to like what they're doing, which is kind of fucked up per se to mention, but that's pretty much what it is with this hentai. And finally, this is a hentai that I remember putting as like the best hentai of the year. and that is Isekai Haramonogatari. Now, Isekai Haramonogatari probably doesn't need a lot of introduction, but this was a hentai that was by the infamous Margin Label Studios, and is a hentai that, for better or for worse, it's about a dude who gets isekai into the fantasy world, and his only power, I kid you not, is just to have sex and give his fluids to these busty, beautiful fighters and warriors and mages, and every time they consume his fluids, he gets stronger and buffer. It's really dumb and stupid 4 episodes, and I think this is without a doubt the best hentai to come out of 2020. But unfortunately, there is another hentai later on in my that actually made to the top 5 that stood out as the best trash anime, or in this case, best hentai of that year, whether people liked it or not. So, without further ado, let's go into now the top official 5. So at number 5, we have a show that I just talked about not that long ago, and that is, let's see, hopefully I spell it right. Yep, Gleipnir. Um, Look, you could argue that Gleipnir is without a doubt one of the most polarizing shows come out in 2020. The whole uh, niche of how like it's about basically two people trying to get back their memories that they lost, and while also trying to solve these aliens, the coins, and why people got these mysterious powers out of getting their wishes granted. It is really fun and really cute and I guess mysterious in a way. But you have to admit, there were some really raunchy, weird, trashy moments that made up for like some of the most like entertaining watching experiences that you're gonna watch if you give this show a shot. Again, I'm not gonna regurgitate Gleipnir and how polarizing or how good the show is, but I've already made a video of it prior, and I think if anything, go check out that video as to why I think Gleipnir was over hated at the time, and I'll leave it at that. So, yep, Gleipnir number 5. At number 4, we have, let's see, a really long title, but like every other generic isekai or MMORPG or whatever type of anime, like Sword Art Online, we have Bofuri, which is I don't want to get hurt, so I'll max out my defense. This show is honestly a pretty big sleeper when it comes to what the show is all about and what it represents. Yes, I am aware that like the second season of Bofuri has gone super downhill since the first season came out, which I might get into in the future video, honestly. But the first season of Bofuri was really good. It had a lot of fun, really stupid qualities of it that made it really good. It's basically about a girl who goes into an online video game. Her main goal, considering the server's video game, she doesn't want to get hurt. So what does she do? She decides to max out all her points, put all her stats into defense and defense only. And somehow it becomes the most overpowered, broken thing ever in the game that she's in. And yeah, you could argue that it is super rip offish of like Sword Art Online, but like in the lowest common denominator. But it is still fun bad at the end of the day. And I'll leave it at that with how Bofuri is. At number 3, this is where um this is where Isekai Haramonogatari should have been. But number 3, for reasons unknown, Overflow. Yep, Overflow. Did I'm pretty sure Overflow needs no introduction at this point. This is a hentai that's 8 minutes, that's 8 episodes in length, each one lasting for like less than 7-8 minutes per episode. And Overflow is, without a shadow of a doubt, the definition of pure vanilla hentai. Like, this is a pure vanilla hentai. You have characters that you absolutely love and adore. There's also stupid moments where we get into some really risque and sexy and hentai situations that's kind of similar to, again, Isekai Haramonogatari. But when looking back at this list, I think we can agree that Overflow was without a doubt the most memorable trashy anime to come out, or trashy hentai to come out of 2020. Because once again, not a lot of people are going to remember Isekai Monogatari. Not a lot of people are going to remember this or this or this. Everyone's going to remember Overflow. And that's why I think it was only right that Overflow would be in the number 3 spot. But unfortunately, it is not at the top of my top 2. At the number 2 spot, though, is a show that I think a lot of people remembered, and I remember fondly, but unfortunately, the later seasons would kind of take a bit of a nosedive, similar to Rent a Girlfriend in a way, but not super downhill like Rent a Girlfriend. And that is, let's see, yep, The Misfits of Demon King Academy Season 1. The Misfits of Demon King Academy Season 1 is without a shadow of doubt, one of the trashiest, funnest experiences you're gonna have if you ever want to watch like a really fun, stupid, like reincarnated kind of anime where it's basically about a demon king who decides to die. He gets reincarnated as a young child and sees essentially how his kingdom has become after his death. And throughout this, we see like a lot of creative fight sequences, a lot of really cool characters that you get to know and love somehow, and some really risque scenes that kind of go to like borderline hentai or etchy mode of pure goodness. This show was without a doubt one of a kind, and even though the second season and the other seasons prior to this weren't like living up to the first season in terms of like what Misfits of DBK Academy brought to the table, the first season of Misfits of Demon Academy was definitely a chore, but like a good chore to sit through and absorb. And that's all I gotta say. Misfits of Demon Academy is just probably, in my view, one of the most underrated trashy animes come out within the past 5 years, and that's one way to leave it at. But unfortunately, this couldn't make it to number one. This couldn't make it to number one, and none of these could make it to number one because number one was a show that was super infamous. That it actually got it taken down from tons of streaming services. It got banned for so many different reasons, for all the wrong reasons, and it was all because of an infamous episode. I believe it was episode 3 or 4 of this show. And of course, what I'm talking about, without no introduction at this point, is this Ishizoku Reviewers. Yep, Ishizoku Reviewers is at the number one spot. And like I said, look, you could say all you want about Ishizoku Reviewers or interspecies reviewers, but you can't deny this is without a doubt the most talked about show to come out of 2020 for all the right and for all the wrong reasons. On one hand, this is a show that challenges you, that just pushes the edge, the envelope of like what it means to just watch a trashing anime without being super over the top, like, oh my god, am I watching a hentai right now? Like this is a show that for me, this was literally you have to also keep in mind, this show came out before the infamous redo of a healer anime came out the following year, I believe. And interspecies reviewers was so controversial because, again, of how much it was basically asking the simple premise. And the premise of the show is pretty simple. It's about what would happen if we basically had to have sex with so many different types of species, from slimes to snakes to dragons to mimics to literally anything you can think of. Interspecies reviewers will more or less try their best to cover it all. And after they do their little session, they give a little review. All of the four main guy characters give a review of like what it's like to be with them and sleep with them, and it's so over the top that for me, if you haven't watched like a lot of like really, if you haven't watched a lot of hentai, even like some of the really niche hentai prior to this show, I think you're not gonna get a lot of bang for your buck. But believe me when I say interspecies reviewers is probably at the top of the cream crop when it comes to not only the best trash anime of 2020, but I think is probably like theoretically might be a top 10 best trash anime of the decade, of this decade, to be honest with you. Because since then, we never got a show similar to this show coming out prior to it. I mean, we did, of course, that I could talk about later on, but prior to this, no show was like this that got themselves so in hot water that they had to get banned from every streaming platform and you could barely find a way to search this bitch online. And yeah, that's pretty much going to be it. This is my top 5 best trash anime to come out of 2020. So, yep, reap it, weep it, see it. If you like it, if you dislike it, Leave it down in the comments below. I don't really care. But I'll see you all in the next video where I get to finally wrap up this my little docs and talk about the best anime of 2020. And yeah, I'll see you in the next one. Later.